Today, Stampede panelists, speakers, and audience members will exchange ideas about what Wyoming can do to adopt and adapt innovative technologies in our great state. We first turn to a topic that's crucial for Wyoming's future: education and digital assets. As digital assets reshape the global economy, educational institutions face the challenge of preparing students for a future where blockchain technology, cryptocurrencies, and NFTs are integral to finance, business, and creative industries. The Wyoming Blockchain Education for Everyone, or YOB, program was developed by the cbdi, that's the Center for Blockchain and Digital Innovation. You'll hear that acronym many times today. It supports such digital asset education. This panel today we're about to have explores how educators can integrate digital asset literacy into curricula. Let me introduce our distinguished panelists. First, Megan Degenfelder, Wyoming State Superintendent of Public Instruction, elected in 2022. She is one of the youngest elected statewide officials in Wyoming history. She's from a sixth-generation Wyoming ranching family, and she holds degrees in economics and political science from the University of Wyoming, and a master's in economics with a focus on coal and rural gas demand elasticity. Our second panelist is Steve Lupien, who needs no introduction. Our third panelist is Leo Wolfson, director of the Hoskinson Government and Policy Center. Leo spent a decade in journalism, most recently as state politics reporter for Cowboy State Daily, where he won numerous awards and gained a deep understanding of Wyoming politics and the lawmaking process. Leo may have a special announcement as well. Please welcome our Education and Digital Assets panel.
This is, I think, a very special panel. Superintendent Megan Degenfelder is really driving education across the state. And when we began our blockchain initiatives, really 8 years ago now, it was about a couple of things. It was about diversifying our economy. We're an extraction state, and extraction states are known for their boom and busts. And we wanted to level out the, those cycles. But we can't do that if we don't have a well-trained workforce. So one of the discussions I had early on with Cam when we were establishing the cbdi was, we wanted to make sure the University of Wyoming graduates were the best they could possibly be in this space. I've seen a statistic floating around that about 75% of our graduates leave the state of Wyoming and pursue their careers elsewhere. Well, I think we have an opportunity here to stop that cycle, because blockchain jobs are good paying jobs. They're perfect for our graduates. And I know that Superintendent Degenfelder, working with our other panelists, are developing education programs across the state, including our high schools, including our adult population. And I think that's such a key component to accomplishing what we really want to accomplish in the state. So my role on this panel today is actually the easiest of the 2 days, because they're the subject matter experts, and I just want to kind of stay out of the way and let all of you talk about where you think education can go, the importance of this type of digital education, and why Wyoming is the right place for that to take place. So I want to start out, obviously, with the superintendent, and if you could say a couple of words beforehand, and then I'll kind of kick some questions back and forth.
Well, thanks, Steve. And I think that you sell yourself short in terms of what you know about education in this space and the importance of it. We are here today. The advancements we're seeing in K-12 and the university are really because of Steve's work. And so very much appreciate all that you've done, including this great event and building the center, as well as the YOB, and we'll talk about that some more. But you're right. Everything really stems from education. We can be as innovative as possible as a country, as a private sector, but if we don't carry that innovation into the classroom, into that next generation, then we won't continue to build. And as Caitlin mentioned in her opening remarks, Wyoming is a state that leads. When you think about our history, long ago, I want to take you back to the early 1960s, when America did what America does best, and they said, we're going to offer, if you're willing to risk it all, if you're willing to take on that challenge, to travel from everything you know, everything you own out here on the East Coast and go west, we'll give you land to be able to develop and to make into something greater. And that's what the early settlers of Wyoming did. They made it, they developed it into what it is now today. As Caitlin mentioned, we were the first state in the country to grant women the right to vote in 1869, and the rest of America followed. That's what Wyoming does. We lead and America follows. Who would have thought that all of the work of individuals in this room and the Wyoming legislature over the last 8 years, and then to see this spring and all that continues to happen from the presidential administration with executive orders, with the Genius Act, it's truly incredible to see now that come to fruition, that the rest of the country is following. But the important thing to remember in that is we can't become complacent. That is not a given that we just lead. If we do not instill innovators in the next generation, if we don't as policymakers create an environment to be able to lead, to innovate, to think differently, then we will fail. We'll fail those who have came before us in Wyoming. And I think in many ways we have become a little bit complacent. As you mentioned, we're very much an extractive state. We have really relied on the mineral industry to see us through. And that's been great. It's funded great public schools. Our state has been very successful. But sometimes what happens in that sense is it causes us to become a little complacent in terms of really pushing forward, driving the needle and thinking differently about things. And so I see this area of digital assets as truly the new revolution in Wyoming, in the country, in the world. And for Wyoming, I think we can continue to be that traditional mineral producing state, but also look to something completely different and to drive leadership there. But in K-12 especially, and this is why I ran for this office, I'm not an educator. I was in the private sector, seeing how we need to be preparing students better for the workforce, that we lag behind business and industry when it comes to innovation. But it takes all of you in this room to work together to have an education system that's more nimble, that meets the needs of industry as it's ever changing. Because I guess I would ask, any current students in the room? Are there some in the back I maybe see? All right, okay, love it. Love it. Well, and so if you ask most college students here at UW, how much of your high school education did you spend learning about digital assets? And I think we would be sorely disappointed in how much that they know. And the fact of the matter is, it's going to be every single career field out there. Maybe a student says, oh, I'm going to be a nurse, I'm going to be a teacher, it doesn't impact me. You bet it does. The blockchain is going to impact every single industry out there. And so we have to, as policy leaders, as educators in the state, we have to be committed to providing this to the next generation. And Steve, I've probably gone on too long.
No,
so I'll
nope, not at all. Not at all. The next panelist I want to introduce brings something I think really unique to education. Many of you know the name Leo Wolfson because Leo has spent a good part of his career here in Wyoming telling stories. Is that a fair way of phrasing it?
Sure.
And I think that's the best way you compel students in education is tell them a story. And so why don't you go into a little bit of your background, Leo, and people will recognize who you are when you do that. Leo knows where the bodies are buried because he's the one that's buried them. So please go ahead and tell a little about yourself.
Proverbially, of course. Yeah, I was a journalist in Wyoming from 2018 to this past May. Most recently, I was the state politics reporter for Cowboy State Daily. And this is an incredible opportunity that kind of took me from this world to focus on more policy stuff. But what I really learned about Wyoming covering politics in the state is that it's so tight-knit. There's connections are everything in this state. and everybody practically knows everybody. Everybody has a cousin that lives in a different town, and they are a friend, and they can say, oh, I know so-and-so. So relationships are so key, and what I was able to do is kind of build some of these relationships and understand kind of how the political dynamics in Wyoming work. And what we're so excited about is being able to kind of champion bringing blockchain education to Wyoming high schools and just really re-promoting the effort and bringing attention to what, the groundwork that you laid back in 2023. And that's what we've been up to. And we truly believe it's so important for Wyoming to, get both arms around this and really get behind it, because this is the future. And ultimately, Wyoming is already so far ahead of the pack with what we're doing. As far as we are aware, there's no other state that is teaching Wyoming blockchain curriculum in their high schools besides Wyoming. Mm-hmm. And we want to continue and grow on that, some of the groundwork that you laid, and continue to make Wyoming a leader in this field, because there's so much opportunity. And I think I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but I think everybody in this room knows that this is the future, and that we have a tremendous opportunity. We're a state with the smallest population in the country, but really all that matters is if you get ahead of technology and make yourself ahead of the workforce, that is how you make yourself a leader in this country.
Thank you. Next, I want to introduce a good friend of mine, Ken. I'm going to have you introduce yourself. One of the really interesting phenomena, I don't know if that's the right way to phrase it, that I've found around the blockchain space is how many veterans are drawn to the blockchain space. In my center alone, half of my researchers are non-traditional students who came back to the university as veterans and have absolutely thrived. I don't know, is Joey and Matt in the room? Matt ran the whole events yesterday, so I'd be perfectly okay if he's still in bed. And I know I saw Joey at some point, but the non-traditional students have added so much to this space, and I know that's where you come from, and you're bringing your talents of organization and really being able to connect. And so I'm especially proud to be working with you on that, and would like you to share a little bit about your experiences as well, too.
Yeah, thank you, Steve. And for a little bit of context, I'm the phantom fourth panelist. My name's Kendrick Ladd. So Leo and I are with the soon to officially launch Hoskinson Government and Policy Center. So we're focused on public policy here in Wyoming, especially as it pertains to blockchain. So our role in this panel is just to introduce ourselves to you and specifically to the teachers, because we're going to be acting as a resource as they choose to implement YOB. So we'll talk through a little bit about what that means in a minute. But Steve, back to your question. Mm-hmm. So my history, I grew up as a nomad all over the place. My folks were in the military. I was in the military. And then we moved here, my wife and I, sight unseen, for the very reasons that we hear, the spirit of Wyoming and what that means. And so I was a federal regulatory investigator for about 6 years. And then I came across the Cardano Summit in Laramie in 2021 and realized I need to change my career trajectory to do something with this. So very happy to be the general counsel, head of policy for the center. And ultimately, the ethos that Wyoming embodies is just so synergistic with blockchain. And so the question is, in the space that's so rapidly evolving, right? The tech changes constantly. We don't have time to wait. So we need to get our kids in the classroom to start thinking through these foundational concepts and start looking for to develop their sense of critical thinking. How is this applied? How will this change how we interact with digital systems and how our children interact with those? And ultimately, hopefully, all the work that we're all putting in right now, it benefits generations beyond us that we never get to see the benefit of that.
Well, thank you. I'd like to just take a minute to talk about how the YOB program came about and where I think the YOB program can go. And I'd like all of you to feel free to jump in and talk about it. YOB actually came from a very unusual source. After COVID, every state was allocated certain federal funds to help the state get back onto its feet from the loss of jobs, and so Wyoming was no different, and money was allocated to the governor's office, and a number of different entities, the cbdi included, were asked to participate in saying, what do we think would help Wyoming get back on its feet as quickly as possible, and obviously as efficiently as possible. Most of us sitting in this room don't like government spending. I'm probably, speaking mostly for myself, but but I do think there are real world uses of it. And so we did apply for a relatively small grant that was accepted. And the cbdi then began developing a module-based education system. And we wanted to design it that way because we also understood that we didn't want to take away teachers' abilities to teach what they want in their classroom. We wanted, there may be certain modules that high school faculties would say, this fits perfectly within my computer science program. Or I'm doing, I'm a business teacher and I'd like to use 4 or 5 modules in my business class. I think, Pat, there were 12 modules altogether, Pat, I think, when we first launched it. But the modules were designed to kind of be pick and place, because we don't want to take away the ability of Wyoming's incredible teachers to be able to make the decision on what they teach in their classrooms. And so the modules were designed to be essentially standalone if so chosen to be. And so that was our goal, and we set out to do that. And we had a couple of schools pilot the program, and it was successful. But what we were lacking was really the resources to really, push this program out to the broader education community. And so I'm pleased to say that the superintendent has been very supportive. And now through Wyoming Integrity, which incidentally, if I could shamelessly plug Wyoming Integrity a little bit. Wyoming Integrity is associated with Charles Hoskinson, which is a very prominent blockchain individual here in the state. If any of you've noticed my title, I am the Ada Lovelace Director. So my position has been endowed by Hoskinson, and he has made a tremendous impact on the state, including things at this university, but he's got a medical center in Gillette that's making some significant impact here in the world. The project I'm trying to get him to really push is, I don't know if you're aware of a project called Project Colossus. Karen Wheeler is going to yell at me now. The Hoskinson Institute has found out how to gene map and bring back the woolly mammoth. And I want woolly mammoths walking around the University of Wyoming. I think that will be a tremendous asset to our university. And I've said to Charles, I can't wait to taste a woolly mammoth. And he's like, I'm not spending all these, tens if not hundreds of millions of dollars so that you can eat these things. And I'm like, they're extinct. They must be delicious. If they tasted awful, we'd still have them walking around today. So I do think that, that there's the possibility there here at the university. But Charles Hoskinson has been amazing to this university. And, by nature of the fact that education is important to him, I think that shows his commitment to the state. So I want to stop talking because this is the tip of the spear in Wyoming B, and I'd like them to all share their vision on Wyoming B. By the way, B stands for blockchain education for everyone. So we thought we were going to be cute about that. So if you're wondering why it's Wyoming B, that's why. So so let me start out with our friends from Wyoming Integrity and talk about your vision. And then I'd like to kick it over to the superintendent and talk about, okay, how do we make this happen? So gentlemen, fire away.
Certainly. So this kicked off with a webinar that we hosted a number of weeks ago, just reaching out to teachers, providing an opportunity for them to survey the curriculum. Steve did a phenomenal job with it. As he talked about, it's modular, so it's up to the teacher to see how different modules or the entire curriculum best fits into what they're teaching the students. And ultimately, what I think this demonstrates, and it's the right way to approach it, blockchain shouldn't be seen as something that is only for folks on a software developer path. And I think that's probably, we're still in this sort of Jeff Bezos in his garage selling books phase of blockchain, right? So people are still wrapping their heads around this, but I think what we're going to realize increasingly so is that this is trust infrastructure. Mm-hmm. And so we're looking at every single avenue that we exchange data and we trust, whether they deserve it or not, intermediaries to serve this role of facilitating trust. And so when we look at these students and as they're exploring what they want to be when they grow up, mm-hmm. I think a big part of YOB, a big benefit of it, will be basic literacy in blockchain. So it might spur some students to follow that trajectory. And to that extent, Leo has an announcement a little bit later. But ultimately, we need folks who can recognize potential applications of this trust infrastructure. And that benefits our society immensely in the long run.
Let me just, before I hand it over to Leo, something that I really stress to my students is we live in a unique time where everything that exists today needs to be reinvented. You know, I'm old enough to remember when the internet came about. There's some of us in the room that are probably there too. And when that happened, everything had to be reinvented. And we look at the world we live in today, and it's the applications and what we need to do as humans are the same. The delivery vehicle is entirely different. And I'm sensing the exact same thing dealing with trust. Okay? Every single thing we do today from a business standpoint has to change. And I say this to my students, and I'm going to say it to everybody in the room. Why is that not you? Okay, why aren't you the ones that are reinventing the way everything changes? You can start a blockchain company right now in your bedroom or on your kitchen table. And one of my students sitting right here in the front, wave Dalton, put him on the pressure. He did that. He started a company, and every one of us need or has the capability of doing that. So, think about what you do every day on your phone in your everyday life. Okay, that's old school now. It's got to get rebuilt around trust, and so part of what the Wyoming B program also does is let every one of our students know that you're the change agent that's going to make this all happen. Sitting back and waiting for somebody else to invent it, why? You can do that. So, Leo.
Yeah, you said that wonderfully. And like I was saying before, we really feel like Wyoming has an opportunity to be at the head of the curve here, if not already, and why not take advantage of that? One of the wonderful things about the blockchain industry and cryptocurrency is that a huge percentage of the available jobs are fully remote. So instead of having to move to Silicon Valley or New York City or where else for a job, you could stay right here in Wyoming. You could stay on a ranch up in Manderson and continue to live your day-to-day life with your family while pursuing an opportunity in this incredible industry. And that's kind of the opportunity that we're looking to give Wyoming high school students an opportunity to give themselves a leg up in the workforce and show that they have vast experience starting at a high school level with blockchain technology, something that we know for pretty much a fact that practically no other states are pursuing at this time. And the announcement I was going to make, I think this is a good time to announce it, is we're going to be offering a scholarship program for Wyoming high school students who are interested in pursuing blockchain careers and blockchain education at the college level. An opportunity for them to get a scholarship through Charles Hoskinson or Hoskinson Government and Policy Center. So we're very excited about that, and we'll have more details to come on that in the future.
Right. Superintendent, no pressure. Okay? You know, all you have to do is change the entire educational system of this fair state, and we'll be ready. No, you have, I've known the superintendent for quite a while now, and what's impressed me the most is, and I hope this doesn't sound, you get it, okay? You get that we have to change the way education is delivered. You know, you understand that, and I think your remarks earlier were spot on. You can't be a truck driver today without being digitally literate because your logs are now electronic. You can't be a nurse and not, interact with incredibly high-tech equipment. And so, again, no pressure, okay? But you've got an amazing responsibility. And I think you've got an amazing responsibility, but I also think an incredible opportunity because I think you can, and I think you are truly making a difference here that I'm not all that sure California can make that claim. And I do believe that the steps that you put in place, which I'm going to ask you to talk about, have really set this state apart. And so I'm incredibly grateful. As an educator, I'm incredibly grateful. So share a little bit of, that if I handed you a magic wand right now, okay, what would that vision look like in 2 years, 3 years?
Well, great question, Steve, and you're right. I mean, you make me reflect of every industry and use of being, digitally literate. I look at my grandfather who just passed away a couple years ago. He grew up on our family ranch in a 2-bedroom shack with no electricity and no running water. They had half a section. They built that into over 10,000 acres. He went from living like that to operating pivots and tractors on his cell phone in his lifetime. I mean, that's incredible, right? And we're going to continue to see that kind of advancement. And so anyway, you remind me of that, of just, every sector and understanding that. So when we talk about things like the YOB, we talk about the great generosity of Charles Hoskinson. I mean, this is great. We need folks in the industry to give back and to understand that education is where the future is in all of this. But that's all great. But then you say, okay, we have this great curriculum. We have this great opportunity for scholarships. But why isn't every teacher doing it? Well, I'll tell you why. And it's a couple of reasons, and they make sense. And that's why we need to push on policymakers. I also see Senator Rothfuss in the room. He's on the Education Committee in the legislature. So he's part of this whole movement as well. Number one, change is hard, right, for anyone. I mean, the amount of concern we've had of educators of AI, let's just block it in the classroom. Think back when they invented the calculator. I mean, math teachers' worst nightmare, right? But look how we use it today. So change is hard. But number two, the system is set up to make change even harder. So the system that we have for education, teachers, schools, districts, they're all thinking about the accountability system. All right, what do I need to do to have a good score, good metrics on the state test or in the accountability system to show how I rank as a school? Well, the system is not very nimble, and the system doesn't welcome innovation by teachers or by districts. Sure, do we have pockets of teachers? I mean, look at, folks from Shoshone in the back, those several schools that have piloted the curriculum. You're always going to have those early adopters. And then there are many teachers across the state that they're hungry for that. But the problem is, until you change that whole system, how we're holding schools accountable, teachers accountable, then you can't expect them to change in the way, in the speed of which we would like them to. And so that's why for me at the state level, it's been so important to re-look at our whole system, especially around accountability. And I won't get into the weeds, although Senator Rothfuss might want me to on WAEA, that's our accountability system. We could talk for hours about that. But so what I've really been working to do is look at how we think outside the box in terms of accountability and for our schools. How do we make innovation something that we recognize and we promote? And so right now we're piloting in many schools across the state things like competency-based learning, where kids are moving at a different pace. They're using technology to do that. We're looking at pathway options, different certifications. We're right now talking about actually how we change the accountability system of student success plans. Right now, again, I won't get into the weeds as much as I want to, but there's an indicator that's around post-secondary readiness. It's all been about, okay, did you do okay on the ACT, or did you get into the military? That doesn't really show post-secondary readiness. How do we show that with student success plans that actually show that they're prepared for our new and emerging industries? So we're working on actually changing our entire accountability system. Do I need to be doing something different?
1 minute.
1 minute. Oh my
He's
gosh.
warning. I think that was directed to me.
Oh, okay.
Superintendent.
I mean, I could talk forever on this. So I'll really simplify it. The problem is we have to change the system. And that's what we need to push on policymakers, to change the system of which our educators have to work in the confines of. That's the most important thing. And so you have my word that we're going to keep working on that, because we can't expect teachers to be innovative if we're not innovative in terms of policy.
Thank you. One or two questions? I mean, you can't have a panel like this and not take one or two questions. Anybody want to share a thought? Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, that's the great news. That's kind of what today is about. I view, and the program we do here at the University of Wyoming, we view blockchain as a tool. One of the things I constantly get asked, because we were one of the first universities to offer a minor degree in this, and I'm often asked, well, are you going to create a major? And I'm like, no. And they're like, why not? And I'm like, because I don't want people to major in blockchain. I want accountants to get the minor in blockchain. I want engineers to get the minor in blockchain, because it's a tool to solve problems. And throughout today, you're going to hear from a number of speakers that are here at the university working with the Blockchain Center that are actually solving problems. And that, to me, is the real value of blockchain. So I think you and I are perfectly aligned. I view it as an applied science. Look, the reality is, and I please any engineers here in the room, I don't mean this to be disparaging, but I meet 8th graders who learn how to code. And that's great. It's a wonderful skill. Everyone should learn how to code. The hard thing about blockchain is, what do you do with it? Okay, what are the problems that you solve? And the good news is that's kind of what this program is all about. When I talk about blockchain, I talk about blockchain as a golf bag full of golf clubs. If we only had a putter in our bag, we wouldn't be very good golfers, okay? But by having all the different clubs available to us, and we make intelligent choices around utility and other aspects of it, we can solve problems. And the good news is, I'm probably speaking for the superintendent, I apologize. Those are the discussions we've had. Senator Rothfuss has been one of the leaders in the state of this for 8 years. I know, am I speaking for you when I say you kind of share that view as well too? And so I think that's the value Wyoming brings. So today, you're going to hear some really cool projects, and ask questions, and really push on the speakers, because you're exactly what we espouse here at the university.
And Steve, I would just add to that, as you brought up kind of being interdisciplinary, that's one thing I failed to mention. I think the problem, and Dr. Wright, if he's still over there, touched on this at the beginning. In everything that we do, we become so siloed. And then that's a problem. An education system is no different. We become so siloed in our different content areas. And this is going to be my major. These are the focus areas that we're not interdisciplinary and recognizing the importance of all these things working together. And so another part of what we're trying to develop is how do those things mesh together? We have, a school up in Cody that they're bringing together teachers of all the different content areas around one class, and it's all around this project of creating a fly fishing company. Mm-hmm. But anyway, they're bringing that all together, and that's what we need to start doing. We need to stop saying, well, that's just going to be an extra thing, because teachers will view that's just something extra on my plate. No, this is interdisciplinary. This goes into every single pathway that a student's going to achieve.
And if I could end with one thing, I'm an old guy. I've got a 6 handle on my age. When I went to school, I'm not as old as Cam, but when I went to school, we chose the university we went to on some nebulous other concept. And then 2 years in, we matriculated and said, oh, now I'm going to decide I'm going to become an engineer or I'm going to become something else. Education has changed radically. And I think the university or the institution, because we also have a phenomenal community college system here in Wyoming. But I actually think it's too late by the time you go to college to decide what you want to do in your career. Because I think you need to choose your school based on competencies. University of Wyoming has the #2 blockchain program in the country, only behind USC. All right, I think we're punching above our weight a little bit if USC is ahead of us. Okay, I want students choosing the University of Wyoming because of the program we have here, and that's why I think high school education is so important. It's that exposure at that age that makes students go, this is the career path I want to choose. And now you make your university decisions based on that. And that was one of the driving forces behind Wyoming, the YOB program is, let's get them young, okay? And so, well, with that, I want to, amazing panel, great news. Who do they reach out to if they're interested in the scholarship?
We'll have information coming out on that in the next few months. I will most likely be the contact for that, but we'll have lots of information. We'll put out press releases and stuff like that, so to make sure that all these students are aware of it. And I just wanted to also take this opportunity to thank Superintendent Degenfelder for the support you've given us and helping us kind of bringing attention back to this program. It really means a lot. We couldn't have done it without your help.